Yes. Well, welcome to How to Coach League of Legends. I'm really passionate about the game. It is probably my favorite game to compete in, both competitively and leisurely. So I'm really jazzed about it. My name is Sam Allen. I've been head coach for 3 years, which will be my third year coming up this August. So, so I have a quick agenda here of what we can review for the presentation. Is kind of broken up into two sections. The first two headers, introducing League of Legends. What is it? Because it can be different and not quite as uh, simple to understand compared to some other titles. The remaining bits here, so fundamentals through the practice and stage games, of course, go to the more coaching, the in-depth, what to look for, and how you, a coach, can approach the game without knowing specifically the in-depth mechanics. So, just a little bit about me. My name is Sam Allen. I've been playing since 2017, or the beginning of season 7. This was actually my college freshman year. I accidentally kind of stumbled upon to the game, and I fell in love with it immediately, mostly because I was in that environment with esports. South Dakota State had a club, and that's kind of where I was introduced to that environment. Currently, I'm sitting gold 4 in the competitive season. I've kind of been off and on with my current competitive ranking these past 2 years. Because I've been coaching and encouraging players to compete more, I should realize maybe I should take my own advice and start the competitive grind as well. Just this past year, I took home the third place League of Legends at the state tournament, and it has been about 2 years in the making. We had a team compete the first year I was coaching, and then that same team was able to compete this past year, and we are finally able to take a title. It's something amazing to see because it's an award that I never had the experience to do in high school, and to actually earn something like this. So I'm really pleased to have this. So, typically, when I approach League of Legends and introduce the game, me personally, I focus on the core fundamentals of the game. How? Because that is something we, the coach, we, the players, we can actually control. Because League, there's so many different variables you may have to approach. The other players, the map state, what's going on in what you have done. But your fundamentals is something that we can control. Mistakes will happen, and that's okay. Of course, a new game, of course, will be hard for anyone just to pick up. There is no, I'm just going to skip to the know all this information, and we're good to go. It is a long grind, but it's a very rewarding process as well. It will click. So over time, once you do start playing the game, there's going to be a great enlightened moment when the game actually does make sense. Instead of thinking, oh, I need to get CS or the creep scores, I need to reset, or what's the position of everything on the map, it becomes second nature, and you can then use that thinking power into something else. Outside of League, a couple other competitive games, Valorant, Counter-Strike, RuneScape, just overall gamer, of course. So, because there are just the three of us, and it sounds like we're all pretty new to the game, is that correct? I'm going to assume we're all beginners, so have we had any practice with the game before? Have we ran games at all?
I just downloaded my laptops and got through the scenario of the practice in the first year.
Very good.
As far as I got.
I'm assuming we're all in that same situation as well, and that's okay. The slideshow would have been the same if I would have had all experienced players or all intermediate. I just kind of want to get a gauge of the room, just kind of for tempo, my speed of the presentation, and everything. But I'm glad we have this great group here. So, what is League of Legends? League of Legends is a 5v5 massive online battle arena, or MOBA. Similar games you may have heard in that same category are Dota 2, or it's Dota, Smite, Smite 2, and recently Pokemon Unite. The game is played on, well, what we compete in is a map called Summoner's Rift. It is a 5 lane, or it has 5 different roles with 3 different lanes. lanes, with a jungle in the middle. And with that, the map itself is mirrored and reversed. So this portion of the map is actually the same as this bottom portion of the map, just mirrored and reversed. Now, these next two stats, I don't expect you to memorize them all because there's a lot of information. But in total, there's 173 champions and over 200 items. Now, what's nice with the amount of champions is that every champion can fit in a specific class. So, like the generic class role. So we have tanks, fighters, assassins, mages, marksmen, and so on and so forth. They can, of course, be broken down into subclasses, but that gets pretty sticky on what the definition is. What do they actually fit in? So I always like to keep it generic and simple. The 200 items is just a fun stat. I personally didn't know that. A lot of it is like component items that then build into other items, and then the main items, and we'll talk about this a little bit later, is like legendary items. But those are the big tier items. We briefly mentioned over the 5 different roles. So each player will have their role. Here is the top lane, the mid lane, bot lane, and the jungler. So your team will have to figure out which role they will want to be in, because that would dictate how they would play the match. The objective of the game is push your team to destroy the other nexus. So basically it is push from one side of the map down to the other. Overall, it is a rather simple goal. It is pretty straightforward. It's just everything else in between can make things a little bit difficult. To assist with our push, of course, we have your allies. So you have 4 other teammates. We have neutral objective buffs. So things like dragons, Baron buff, Rift Herald, things around the map that assist you in the push. And you have your minion waves. So in a MOBA, throughout the game, neutral minions respawn in each lane, and they will help assist with the push. To help stop the push, so what the enemy sees is, of course, the enemy champions, so the people you're against, the turrets. There are different turrets for base defense, and if you see right here, there are 3 inhibitors. They're a kind of another base defense that allows you to spawn stronger minions to help you switch. Okay, so kind of stages of the game, basic champion information, and objectives. So the game itself can be broken down into 3 different phases. We have an early game, a mid game, and a late game. There is no clear definition on, what is this time set of the early game versus the mid game. But there is kind of an overall understanding of, okay, we have now transitioned from early game state to a mid game or to late game. Typically, the early game, you want to focus in laning phase, getting CS, taking small trades, kind of starting that game. And then that typically is about the first 15 minutes, or when the turret plates fall, which is technically the 14th minute. After the early game, the map starts to open up. So typically, the first turret can fall. So let's say the first turret in the top lane falls. That is kind of a clear indication, okay, we've now transitioned into this new phase, and the map starts to open up. This is when we start grouping up or split pushing, depending on how the map needs to be played out, and looking at objectives. This can last between 15 minutes to about 25, 30 minutes. Kind of just depends on the flow of the game. Late game is a point in time when your gold values starts to fall off. Just because you have more gold doesn't mean you're stronger, because every champion in the game, or everyone on the same map, has full build items, meaning they're at the strongest point anyways. Getting more gold doesn't actually do anything. Vision starts to shrink. Because you have all of your item slots taken, you cannot place more rewards. Less vision, less information for you to gather. And of course, death timers are increased. So a late game team fight, say about 40 minutes, a death timer could be about 60 seconds. That's 60 seconds. It would be a 4v5, 3v3, how many people die in a team fight, you'll be out at that time. So, looking at some basic champion information. So, with the 173 champions, they all kind of have the same outlines, I guess. They have 5 different abilities. They have a passive, a Q, W, E, and an R. So, looking at a QWERTY keyboard, there's a couple options you can play. You can use your pinky on your Q, or some people use their ring finger on the Q. That is completely up to the player's discretion. There is no right and there's no wrong answer. It's just whatever feels most comfortable. So, typically, your Q, W, and E, so these 3 abilities down at the bottom, these are kind of like your basic abilities. These are abilities you can use for poke damage, laning damage. They're meant to be used when you can, or when you see the opportunity to use them, you can definitely use them. Your R is your ultimate ability. It is the strongest, and unlike the other abilities which you can level up at any time, you can only level up your R ability at level 6, 11, and 16. To get experience, all you need to do is if a enemy minion, dies within a certain range, you get experience points. That experience points will then add up to leveling up your character. Within each level up, you can increase one of your basic abilities. All it typically does is increase the damage, reduce the cooldown, increase your mana spent, kind of that offset the balance of everything. But throughout the game, you can level to level 18. They did recently change that so that the top lane now has a level cap of 20 instead. The big difference, instead of getting more abilities, you get more base stats, meaning if you level up to level 19, you just get more HP, armor, mana, things like that. If you look to the side here, we have 2 extra abilities. These are called your summer spells. These are spells that you will select before the actual match, and these are a mix of utility spells and some damage. I guess overall more utility, with the exception of 1 damage here. These are very, very powerful spells because they have so much power within themselves. So, for example, Flash. Flash is one of the core summoner spells you would typically take, I'd say, about 98% of the time. It's always going to be Flash and something else, because it is such a useful tool. Basically what it is a slight blink from one position to another. So you can use that for an escape, you can flash over a wall, you can flash like an engage from an enemy champion, or you can be aggressive to use the flash. You can flash forward to get into a better position. The downside with using one of these abilities is that they have very long cooldowns. Flash is about a 5-minute cooldown, 300 seconds. So we have to kind of realize, when is it a good time to use one of these powerful spells and when should I not? Over time, they will just become second nature. It's something that you will just use because you're in that scenario that I really need barrier, I need a shield, I need to escape, things like that. So this next portion looks to be quite a bit, but I figured out a great kind of good way to describe it. At least I've thought at least. Are we familiar with Call of Duty multiplayer at all? Things like that. These are basically just your perks, right? So, for example, if I'm playing a mage character, right, I would like to select a perk that best suits mage characters. Like Call of Duty, I can select any perk I want for my created class, but ideally there are some perks that fit champions better. So, for example, arcane comet, right? I damage you with a spell that I throw. Our comets or shoot out of me, do some extra damage. That's more useful for mage compared to lethal tempo, because what that does, if I auto attack an enemy champion, my attack speed increases. Mages shouldn't be using basic auto attacks. They want to use their spells. What's nice is colors typically help represent which kind of characters or which champions best suit them. So this is for like marksmen, fighters, assassins, mages, tanks. Inspiration is it's right here. Creative tools. It's a little bit of everything. Anybody can use them. But this is something you'll be selecting in your champion select. And while you definitely can create your own rune pages, the game has been a little bit simpler because they've applied recommended pages. So the game will actually choose your runes for you. So, items. Kind of going back to my Call of Duty example because it is such a well-known game multiplayer experience. If you think of like your items like your attachments, right? You can attach any sort of attachments to your gun, right? If I had a primary weapon, I could attach a red dot sight, silencer, laser grips, whatever. If I really wanted to, I could attach a 4x zoom scope on a rifle. I could. Is it efficient? Probably not, but nothing stopped. Same idea with these legendary items. So they're also broken down into the different categories of fighters, assassins, marksmen, and everything. But a lot of the basic items, so the items that the component items, will then be built into epic items, legendary. And you kind of see the description or an example on this side here. Up here we have a legendary item. It then is built from 2 epic items coming from the 4 basic items. So the basic items do hyperinflate the total amount of items, but it is just the legendary items we should be looking at to be building mostly. Typically, during each game, you'd want to focus on just finishing one legendary item. So I wanted to build this item. I want to make sure I grab up these component items. I don't want to pick up or start building towards another legendary item because that becomes less efficient. I'm now have 2 incomplete items versus the 1 full item. Of course, there's always circumstances when it makes more sense to buy and kind of divert your build path. So if I want to get some extra armor, magic resist, boots, potions, right? Things like that typically is acceptable. You're like, okay, that's normal behavior compared to just buying everything in the shop just because you can. So looking at the objectives. So back to our friendly map here. With it being mirrored, each side of the map, so the top and the bottom side of the map, both have access to different objectives. The top portion I like to just call void objectives, the Baron buff, Baron pit. Bottom is dragon pits. So overall, the void creatures on the top here are typically used for sieging, taking down turrets, kind of help ending the game to slowly take over the map. While the dragons are team buffs. They give you more abilities, they give you strength. So for example, a infernal dragon will give you a burst of damage, right? Ocean will give you some healing, mountain will give you some shielding, right? Or damage resistance. During the game, there are a total of 6 different elemental drakes that can spawn, right? But during the game, only 3 different types will spawn. So in a game, I could have a cloud, hextech, and a chemtech dragon spawn. The mountain, ocean, infernal cannot spawn in that game. Once one team claims 4 dragons, they will actually grant what's called a dragon soul or dragon buff, basically. So it is like an augmented version of each dragon. So ocean soul, if one dragon gave you, I think it's 2% healing and mana, maybe gives you 7% or 10%. It's a bigger buff to each dragon. After the 4th dragon is slain by the one team, Elder Drake appears. The Elder Dragon is kind of a late game execution. Basically, once you have that buff, if an enemy champion gets below, I believe it's 25 or 20%, they're automatically executed for their death, right? So that gives you time to then push up to destroy the Nexus, do what you can to kind of take over the map. It also can be used for game recovery. Say you're losing, but you get the Elder Dragon, that's a huge buff for you. The comparable Void buff would be the Baron buff. What that does is it gives you and your team an empowerment. So the minions that respawn in the lane will then be empowered as well to assist you in your siege, right? So it makes it a lot harder for the defending team to clear waves, start getting map pressure, because there's so much pressure on the map because the Baron buff. Just briefly, we're going to go over the turrets itself. So we have the turrets, we have inhibitors, and the Nexus. This is the Nexus. You want to destroy that to win the game. But the turrets are right here. Each of them have an aggression range. So if you can see right here, notice how the ground is red, right? That means there is no ally minions in range to take the aggression, or you damage another an enemy champion. If you damage an enemy champion under the tower will automatically start to target you. Now, this was taken just in the practice tool. In a real game, the circle, this marking, is not actually present. The only thing giving you notification that you are taking turret aggression is there is a red line showing you where it's going to be attacking, and it also gives you an audible cue. You hear a noise that you're going to be taking damage. The inhibitor here, of course, back to that one map there, that 3. Let's go back. These are the inhibitors on the map. There are 3 of them. Once destroyed by your team, they actually summon siege minions. Basically, larger versions of your minions, your creeps, to assist with the siege. That allows you to get more map pressure while you don't have to baby that wave. It'll always keep sending siege minions for a set amount of time. These will respawn after a certain amount of time, so it is something you want to manage to understand. When should we be taking inhibitors? Can we just push to win? But it also allows the losing team to have that comeback mechanic. They're not always going to be under pressure. It will return. There's that Nexus once again. I don't know, just a good rule of thumb and something I've learned. Always destroy the Nexus. Don't have bad manners. Don't BM. Don't showboat too much, because I've been times when something happens, we don't destroy the Nexus, we lose a team fight, and the game just ends by the other team. So just good manners, destroy the Nexus. So now we're kind of getting into the I guess the coaching aspect of it, what to be looking up for, how to look at the game itself. So there, like I mentioned before, there are the 5 different positions you'll be playing as, where you have top, jungle, mid, ADC, and support. And this is really important because once you find your team, you have to figure out which role best suits each player. So, for example, a top lane champion is a tank, the fighter, right? The engaged champion, kind of the solid rock, the solid foundation of the team, because it is a lane that is important because it has so much value to it, right? So it is kind of more of a 1v1 experience. So it is just one player versus another player, and you'll have to figure out this because it's just important. The mid lane is the core, I'd say the core lane of the map, mostly because of the position where it is. With it being in the middle portion of the lane, it has the ability to impact other side lanes as well. Same with neutral objectives. So because it is, let's say there's a fight near the kind of the top half of the map, it's inefficient for someone who's in a bot lane to have to roam all the way up to the top side of the map. Instead, we just have that mid laner go move up quicker. Typically, mid lane players are the mages, assassins, because they have mobility and they can scale late in the game. Assassins have really high burst damage. They can usually will have some sort of mobility spells, so they can help impact other maps. Control mages, kind of using crowd control, CC, or I guess it's the same thing, and control to scale over time for AoE damage. ADC is this is the more traditional carry position. It is the marksman position. It is what I consider probably the most mechanically challenging position because there's so much to look at. Because while you can dish out a ton of damage, you're also very squishy at the same time. So you have to think about potentially positioning, when to attack, when not to attack, and just kind of take the game as a whole, especially in team fights. The support, so together, the ADC, or the attack damage carry, and the support, they play together in the bottom lane. What the support does is, while they don't have a specific goal of killing minions, pushing the tower, pushing the wave, right? Their goal is to impact the entire of the map. They have a special item that gives them vision, allows them to place wards that gives you vision pockets around the map. Typically, support players are the engage, they can be tanks, or they can be like enchanters, so champions that can heal and shield. I skipped over jungle because it's the most different of the three main lanes. Jungle kind of explained to a new person is hard because there isn't one clear goal, kind of like support, just push the tower, push the minions. Your goal as the jungler is to actually impact the entire map. The way you get goal is you take jungle camps, you can take jungle camps, you can go gank a lane, you can take a neutral objective, right? There is no one rule set. You impacting the entirety of the map. And I have another slide kind of going a bit more in depth of jungling himself. But once you have your players, you want to figure out which lanes they want to be in. And the best way to do it is just asking them, what kind of champions are you interested in? Do you like fighters? Do you like tanks? Kind of, or a marksman? Whatever they kind of answer, we can then kind of curate which lane they will play in. So this is probably what I figure a more important slide, as in these are the actual core, what I figure the core fundamentals of League are. It's CSing, taking good trades, map awareness, reducing deaths, and objective control. So we have this little diagram here. So these are the blue ones are your friendly minions. Red ones are enemy minions. So during the beginning phases of the game, players really need to focus on what's called CSing, or getting creep score. Nickname for the minions as well. CSing is just a shorthand term. CSing allows players to get more gold. To get the gold, you actually have to last hit the minion. Let's say a minion has a 100 HP, it gets down to 10 HP from the other minions, and so you need to attack that minion to last hit it. If you miss, you don't get the gold. More gold is more items. Items make you stronger. New players typically have a really hard time understanding this because it's rather boring thinking, oh, I have this great game with champions, but instead of fighting and doing damage, I have to get minions instead. It's really boring, but it is the absolute most important thing in the game, the economy portion. Taking good trades. So in lane, so that first 15 minutes, your HP is a resource. If you use all your HP in a really poor trade, then you have to back. You can reset back to your base, but think about what does that do for the opponent? Well, one, you could be losing minions, so you're losing gold. It is also kind of increasing their enemy team's map presence, because now they're down ally in the map. Now there's more map presence on the enemy from the other side of portion. So players need to really understand, like, hey, when is a good time to fight versus going all in? Is it small poking? Kind of managing that HP. Map awareness. So the game itself is, there's a lot to keep track of, right? There's 10 or 9 other players on the map. There's the objective, the minions, and vision. You have to kind of take all it is, because if you only focus in on what's happening in front of you and avoid the mini-map, which is always displayed on the game itself, you're missing a lot more information. It's kind of like driving. So when you're driving, you need to focus on the car in front of you, the road, but you need to look at your speedometer, the other pedestrians, right? you're not going to solely focus on your speedometer or people because you can miss what's in front of you. All you need to do is kind of glance around, look, get a general idea of what's going on. And reading the map is very, very important. Reducing deaths. Yes, this is a big one. Less deaths typically means more wins, because the idea is what happened with the death. It's not about, oh no, you died. What led up to the death? Was it because you had 30% HP and the other laner came back with a full item and you tried fighting? That's not maybe the best idea. Or was it you didn't have any vision and you walked into a bush and next thing you know, you're just dead because there's 5 people in the bush waiting for you, right? So you really need to learn on what happened, how did we die, and how can we correct those for future games. The last thing is objective control. This is kind of map control, controlling neutral objectives. Basically, a good, clean game, if everything's done perfectly, which can't be, of course, is you want to slowly push out the other team outside of the map, right? Because pushing them back in their base will give the other team less resources. They won't have access to camps, not as many minions, or the neutral objectives. It gives them less money and less things to work with. So, laning itself. So this is information for about the first 15 minutes. So this is a good diagram of a typical laning phase, right? The circles are added for the demonstration of their attack range, right? And it's a diagram I like to show because let's say we have one champion who has better attack range than the other, so they need to understand that positioning. I'm not going to be standing inside the red circle because they can attack me. Instead, I'll be standing right on the outside. So that is something new players would typically have a hard time understanding of. What is their attack range? What do they need to do? But typically, the laning phase itself is pretty straightforward, which is nice for new players. Get the minions, get the towers, get the gold. Try not to fight as much as you can, but if you need to, by all means, you have the ability to. So here is a bit more information about the jungle, because there's a bit more to it than just being in the laning phase. A typical jungle route could be starting at the red, down at the bottom camp. There are 3 camps in each quadrant. Take one camp here, take the others, rotate up, right? Now they have the option of assisting with a gank top lane, or taking the scuttle cry, or just resetting, right? But then we need to watch out for the objectives that could be spawning on the map. Do we have vision there? Well, what's the next play? What are the lane matchups? A range versus a melee matchup is completely different from a melee versus melee. Think like that. If there's a melee versus a range matchup, the range matchup would typically win and have priority of the lane, meaning they're pushing in the other laner because melee champions can't walk up as easily. So maybe that's a good point for the jungler to go assist the top laner who's struggling. One of the most important jobs the jungler does is they have a special summoner spell called Smite. Smite is a true damage execution typically used for neutral objectives, so like the dragons, the barons, and everything. What it does is if Baron has 50,000 HP and you get it down to 1,400, the Smite does that amount of damage. It does 1,400 damage. So the jungler needs to make sure not to smite too early or smite too late, because it can become a coin flip on who gets it, right? Your team can still get it, but it's not in your control, right? So the jungler needs to be very accurate on when to use it for securing objectives. Vision. So I have 2 pictures up here. One I like to show kind of students to introduce vision, and the other one is a live mini-map of the game. So this is typically what you see in-game, right? So you can see the minions, the blue minions, they give you vision. We can see what's going on in that part of the map, versus the red portion here, Well, this must be in the spectator tool, actually. The red minions, actually, you shouldn't be able to see that unless, and it might be kind of hard to see, but there's a little blue trinket right here. That is a ward. That gives you vision in this specific pocket, right? But look at all the other dark spaces here. How do we know if there's multiple champions in this part of the jungle? We don't know, right? Well, we have to use our context clues to figure out, okay, how many people are on the map? What is the next objective we should be taking, or where should be playing? Or can we just kind of push freely? Because if everybody is on the bottom side of the map, there's no one in the top side of the map to put us in danger. So that's just where the map awareness and the vision game plays a role. This diagram is a generic pathing of a player. So if I wanted to go from the mid lane to the bot lane, right, most of the time they're just going to walk right down the middle, right? Same with going into different jungle entrances around the map here, and common ward spaces. So something to consider is efficient vision control, meaning what is good vision? Is my team, so let's say on the blue team, am I going to put a ward, say right here? It's not very efficient. What is that doing? It's not getting me more information. A ward right here, which there is one, is great because it can potentially see what's going on here. I use the yellow lines to kind of show, typically in the cross paths is where good vision can be placed. So vision down here can give this amount of vision range. In this bush, you see in the bush, and kind of showing that a bit more visual. So your coaching style. There is no one specific way to coach the game. We all come from different backgrounds. We can all use our strengths from one game title to another. So, for example, I go to core fundamentals, good draft picks, smart plays, right? And what's nice is that I share that kind of same ideology, or I actually learned from an actual professional League of Legends coach, goes by LS. Let's say I'm new to the game. I have no experience with the game whatsoever, but what I can do is I can bring phenomenal team culture, right? I want to build that morale up with the team. I want to make that synergy, right? And even though I'm not specifically coaching, hey, at this moment in time, you did this, this, this. Instead, we have to do this portion here. You're building the team morale. So you have to kind of think of, why are we in this position? What strengths can I use from another game title and translate them over to another one? A great example for me personally is I have very little experience with Rocket League. I don't know much about the game at all, but I do know League of Legends, right? So even though I don't know the strongest fundamentals, right? I don't know the mechanics and the whole synergies of everything. Instead, let's build a good culture, right? Let's ask players and have them answer questions to get them thinking, right? So all these different coaches all have different styles as well. So when you're coaching, when you're thinking about how you want to approach the game, use your skills you already have, translate them over to the team title. Tools for growth and education. So this is overall some information on how we can improve our game. Of course, review is the easiest one, as you can spectate your own games. What's nice is League doesn't require any external applications to review your games. Everything is stored locally on your computer. The only thing you have to keep track of is how long that replay is available. It's typically about a week to be able to download it. Once it's downloaded, you can spectate it whenever. The practice tool is integrated into the League client. So if you want to try something new, like I want to focus on, and I did this all the time actually, I ran drills, CS drills. For the first 10 minutes, get as much CS as you can. I don't care how they did it. All they had to do is play the game normally. And what's nice about that is you're in a protected environment. You can focus on just the one thing and then just get the skills out of repetitive action. Scouting this is of course more towards competition. So when you're against another team. So this is actually why people need to display their names. Who am I going to be against? Because we can use different websites, op.gg, u.gg. These are informational websites that assist with builds and, of course, scouting your players. So let's say, for example, I'm playing a match, right? The other team can look at my match history. They can look at all my stats. They can see which champions I play, and then during the pick ban phase of drafting, they can then ban the champion I prefer to play. One-on-one coaching. So just like us, how we coach in different styles, students also take to their learning in different styles as well. One of my best examples and one of my favorite players is I couldn't understand how to learn. I could teach him all day, but he just wouldn't do it in a group setting. It wasn't until I forcefully backseated, coached him, when it finally clicked on him. I personally would hate that, but that works just fine for him. So if you try one coaching style with a single student and it doesn't work out, perhaps try another style, right? Because once they find that style that clicks with them, they're able to understand the game significantly more than a, let's say, group environment. Goals and to track them. So there's a lot to lead. There's a lot to manage. There's a lot to really think about. So it's really important to establish either short-term or long-term goals. Short-term goal is I want to understand, play this champion to the best of my abilities every single game. That's great. Let's record that. Let's check in week after week. How are you doing in your games? What did you learn from this champion, right? And having those goals, recording them and showing them, and see that progression and that development in your players. It keeps them focused on the game, focused on the task, and of course, focused to improve themselves. Practice and stage games. So once we're in the environment of actually playing the game, these are different things I think about when we're in the setting. Planning, kind of very similar to having a goal. If we are going to play a scrim game, or it's a practice game, don't just let the players autopilot into doing whatever. Let's give them a plan. Let's see, okay, let's plan on our communication. Let's focus around the objectives, right? That gives them thinking about it and making sure that they're not just autopiloting the game. Motivation. League can be a very, very tilting game, be very, very emotional as well. So it's really, really important to keep the players motivated and in a good mindset. It's very similar to golf. I'm an avid golfer as well. Once you start not playing well, things get significantly harder for the next stroke. Very same idea with league. It is my goal to always motivate my players, right? Their loss is never their fault. If we do lose, we understand why we lost, but we move on. My favorite saying is when we do scouting is we punch up, not down. I don't care who we play against. We could be playing a school who's with brand new players, playing a school who played first place. It doesn't matter. That shouldn't change how we play as a team. And if anything, we can learn from punching up, but we don't punch down. Doesn't matter. We don't punch down. Drafting. So there is a draft order. So this is where that scouting kind of comes in. In a competitive environment, for example, blue side gets first pick, but red side gets the counter pick, sort of the last pick. So do we need to prioritize a certain champion because my player only plays this one champion? Well, we got to make sure we prioritize that in our draft strategy. During the state, when watching, I have a 1,000-yard stare. I pace back and forth because I love the game. I'm nervous. And one of the admins kind of came over and started chatting with me just to kind of feel better. And they kind of said, Sam, what was the hardest portion of the coaching getting prepared? I said it was the draft. Because I personally put my team through so many different trials. I want to make sure that they're prepared for anything. Because if, let's say, they ban out these 3 champions, what are we going to respond on the back end here? Watch. When we're watching the game, that's our job. We can observe everything that's going on to understand, hey, these are some mistakes that are common through each match, and let's review them. Of course, hindsight is always 20/20, so the mistakes do happen, but don't highlight just negatives. Highlight the positives. This was really, really good. I appreciate what you did this portion of the game. Let's continue to do that. Last bit, I guess they're kind of together, the watch and review, very similar ideas. Review not just what your team did, what does the other teams do? In the spectating tool, you can actually see every aspect of the game. You can see your team and the enemy team. Potentially, you can see the red team or the other team saying, what happened? How did I get caught out? Was I sitting in a bush with vision, right? Just those really small things to review. Are we finishing up?
We're at time, so if you want to
Perfect.
start wrapping it up.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. This last slide is completely optional. This is how I personally got invested into League of Legends. I watched the competitive scene because what else are you going to do in college on your free time? You just watch YouTube. Riot Games has a phenomenal system of a giant competitive environment, right? So different major regions, North America, Korea, EU, and everything. But if you have players who are invested into League of Legends, who really, really like it, you can also encourage them. Hey, there's another aspect of the game as well you can appreciate. It is the competitive portion of it. The last bit here is I just need a shout out. His name is Faker. He is probably the greatest esport player of all time. He was recently just mentioned in the Times Top 100 Most Influential Athletes of 2026. So he is well known across not just esports, but breaking into the traditional sports as well. With that, it kind of sounds like we're out of time, but are there any questions I can help kind of answer or anything you want to quickly review at all?
You said LS, the coach.
Yeah.
Is that one I can find when I go on FenWorks to do some coaching hours?
No. So these coaches are all professional coaches.
Oh, not someone you can.
No, unfortunately not.
Okay, I thought that
But
was.
what's nice too is each one of them typically have media, social media, YouTube pages.
So say, yeah, like I could take my kid work on fundamentals, since this will be basically a new game for them this year. Take him to like the LS YouTube page and
Yeah.
some fundamentals for him.
So yes, he slowly kind of phased out from coach-specific coaching into co-streaming and everything. I will tell you, he's a bit vocal of the game. He's a bit harsh on players because he's very, very blunt. So kind of use that with a grain of salt. Perhaps make your research, and if needed, you can always reach out to me as well if you want some information, or I can always send some more maybe school-appropriate educational videos about the game as well. It's just that I wanted to show that no matter what your coaching style is, this also can be translated in what's going on in the person as well.
I'm just trying to figure out a good way to start getting my kids. Like they played it off and on after state last year. But trying to say we're going to focus in on this year.
Yeah.
We're going to start pulling some time together here at the beginning of the school year here in August.
Yeah.
And put some YouTube videos and stuff together to get some practice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe reach out to me and I can send you some information. But the biggest thing, taking CS, taking good trades, because taking bad trades can the first 15 minutes, if you have poor 15 minutes, it can make the next 15 minutes very, very difficult.
And CCing is it's not taking out the other minion, it's gaining minions, right?
It's last hitting the minions. So making sure that you're last hitting the minions to get that gold, to get that income, right?
You want to be the one finishing.
Correct, yes. If you're curious, at 10 minutes, pro scene, really good metric, is a 10 CS per minute or 100 CS at 10 minutes. Anything above 50, 60, you're on a great path, right? And of course, it's all stepping stones. It's all going to come together one thing at a time.
I'll probably be hitting it to figure it out around.
Yeah.
Like the replays, like
yeah.
Practice games.
Cool. Awesome. Well, thank you for everybody.